political manipulation, submission to despotic superpowers at international law, dictatorial leaders, forced ignorance in the population. These are aspects that are found in the novel 1984, but how far are they from reality?
In the novel, we find three socioeconomic giants who decide the fate of the world: Eurasia, Oceania, and East Asia. They comprise the vast majority of territories worldwide, and dispute the remain to dominate. The respective predominant ideologies and their economy are opposed to each other, being of different nature. They are in perpetual war, a war that has no end, whether tangible or not. It seems quite utopian to think that in reality we also have such superpowers, but the truth is that they exist. On the one hand, we have China, one of the richest superpowers in the world. We have Russia, with its weapon powers, and we find the United States. In the event of conflict, the European front tends to join the United States through organizations such as OTAN. This is how, analyzing these parallels, we find that we not discuss so much of the narrative that developed the work. We do not find immersed in the intentionality of these three superpowers and how they develop with each other, having the ability to control our day-to-day. Not only in the case of a supposed war with weapons and death, but, for example, through the control of the economic market and its political influence on the decision of the country relating to them.
Can they tell us what to think? One of the most frightening aspects about George Orwell's novel 1984 is the existence of an only party, the only political party that can rule in the superpower importance in which the work take place, Eurasia. All the families, all the members of this society has to subscribe to its ideology, except of the proletariat because they're not even considered full right citizens. They have the same rights as an animal, like a dog or a cat. All families must subscribe the party's ideology and follow its values tightly. The population is manipulated so they're no longer autonomous but automatons. Is it so surreal that this can happen in real life? In order to look, for example, we don't have to look for authoritarian regimes, for instance. We just have to look across the Atlantic Ocean. At the end of the 19th decade, Big Data denounced different social networks and media for the manipulation of the citizens during the electoral process of the United States of America. Indeed, these social networks try to manipulate the population by increasing the social tension and polarizing the society. So the two major parties, the Democrats and the Republicans, could have more votes in the results. Even if we do not find here an only party to vote or a manipulation to vote that only party, we find indeed an artificial bipartisanship sustained by media manipulation, which is still happening nowadays, not only in the United States, but here from home.
One of the most curious characteristics of the regime described in 1984 is the manipulation of information that may or may not reach the general population. Ordinary citizens know little about the war that was unfolding between Eurasia, Oceania, and East Asia. They didn't even understand the reason for this war, but they know that there was an enemy and that they must die for it. This, for example, we found it in reality without straying too far from our present. At the beginning of the Russo-Ukrainian War, we were surprised from the Western Front by the disinformation which the Russian government forced his population. Many Russian citizens were unaware of the existence of the war. Many of them were unaware of its magnitude and easily subscribed to Putin's rule. They say, is that they are our enemy? Is that land belonged to us less than 100 years ago? And also, another example of the isolation of the population is the new language developed in the novel 1984. To prevent citizens from thinking about concepts such as, for example, freedom, it's removed from their vocabulary with the aim of eliminating this concept from their reality. The same happens today in countries like Saudi Arabia, where it's forbidden to talk about issues related to sexuality so as not to promote promiscuity. Countries like Russia, where it's forbidden to talk about homosexuality or those realities alien to this heteronorm, in order to prevent citizenship from being represented by queerness. Likewise, not more than 200 years ago, it was forbidden in several parts of European countries, to talk about lesbianism to women, since it was considered that the intellect of the women was so poor that knowing the possibility of being able to maintain relationships supposedly contrary to nature and the designs of the law, women wouldn't be able to avoid wanting to maintain relationships with other women. By not even knowing the concept of lesbianism, it prevented women from being weighing that possibility. This is how we can observe that in both the work and in the reality, language shapes thought and is able to manipulate it.
Big Brother, leader of the only party and great reference for citizens. He who sees all things and knows everything in George Orwell's novel, the concept of the thought police, TV screens, doublethink, that claustrophobic feeling that produces you to be aware that you are being watched, what you are being analyzed, and all your actions and thoughts can be questioned. It seems an effectively unreal dystopia, but can reality come true? Today, with the progress of technology, practically at least in our socio-economic context, we can all afford a telephone, a television, a computer, and so on. They are tools that can be very useful to be used for ethical purposes. However, this does not only depend on us. No more than 10 years ago, Facebook was denounced for the sale of private information of its users to foreign companies, in order that they reach their users more effectively and perform economically more effectively, all without the consent of internet users. We see how, if we want to know a person and his way of thinking, we only have to get his social networks and read the tweets that he has been publishing massively for 5 years, the photos he uploads to networks, with whom he uploads them, and who his followers are, to knowing which circles that person socializes in. It is very easy to monitor someone through networks, and this is precisely what certain companies advocate. They monitor different profiles to make advertising campaigns more effective. However, it is extremely easy to be able to enter a person's privacy in a couple of clicks.